To get started, first of all, good afternoon. My name is Jake Vanderlinden. With me behind the scenes, I have Josh Hutchings. He's one of our certified training coaches, as well as myself here at Alexandria. We're really excited to come back to be getting into back to school season and working with you guys to get your libraries up and running and ready to go for the new school year. Hopefully everything that we're going to be covering today, some of it will be new, some of it will be carryovers from those of you that are version 6 and legacy users coming into version 7. For those of you that this is your first back to school season, this is going to be a great place to get started. We've got a couple of methods that we're going to be going through today, so just to kind of cover everything. So really quick, guys, my agenda slide's missing, but what we're going to be covering today is we're going to be covering the Alexandria method for updating and managing your patrons with back to school time. We're also going to be covering the Alexandria field by field management system, the way that we're going to go through and actually adjust, homeroom fields individually, grade fields individually with advancing grades, things along those lines. We're also going to talk about things like setting up your calendars, card expiration dates, as well as policy management, making sure that your system's all set and ready to go. Finally, we will be wrapping up with us talking about some weeding. If you do inventory at the beginning of your school year as opposed to the end of the school year, we'll reference those things as well. All in all, we just kind of want to get you guys all set and ready to go with your back to school stuff. Now, as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to talk about today is our Alexandria method for updating and managing your patrons. We here at Alexandria have developed a 3-step method for really quickly updating and adding all of your new and existing users, modifying fields, and removing those patrons in 3 quick steps. Essentially, these 3 steps will make sure that you're only working with the patrons at your facility for this year specifically, and makes it able for you to go in and remove, even your younger or mid-level students right with that utility. All right. So as we get started, guys, as you can see, it's 3 steps: unify, import, and remove. So we're going to jump right into the program here. Now, for Alexandria version 7 users, as you remember, you're going to connect to your database through your hosted URL. Once you get logged in, you'll be right on that circulation window, and we're just going to kind of jump right to it. Now, with this Alexandria method, as I mentioned, it's 3 steps to really quickly get in there. You're going to unify a field so that you can select by later on for patron removal. And then you're going to update your patron information with an import file. And lastly, like I said, is that removal step. So it's modify, import, and then remove. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is our patron records. When I say unify a field, what I'm meaning is here in your patron records, and we're just going to do a blank search really quick, we need to select one field that's shared across all patrons that's going to be covered in our import file. This could be something like homerooms, second location, but for our demo and my preferred method is grade fields, because grade fields is such a important part when it comes to schools and things along those lines. This is usually something that's always in every database. Okay. So to get us started with our 3-step process, we're going to unify our grades across the board by coming into Tools and going to Utilities. And then here in the Utilities section, we're going to go ahead and grab our patron utilities to update some information. Now, as you can see, these things are pretty straightforward. So I'm going to grab our Change Patron Grade utility. And basically what we want to do, everyone, is we want to set this up for everybody in the system. So all of our standard patrons, everybody that's, a student, we're going to make sure that we're just getting this updated for all of our patrons simultaneously. The options that we're going to be setting this to is where we're going to be setting up the actual grade information. And what I recommend doing is when you're setting up your grade, I recommend setting it up for the previous school year's graduation year. So we just want to set everybody's grade to 2017 for the last outgoing grade school year. Okay. Everything else here in the utility is set up for all patrons. So I'm going to go ahead and say run. This is going to let us know we're modifying for approximately this many patrons. Do we want to go ahead and do that? We're going to say yes, and that utility is going to run. Now, obviously, we want to give that a second to finalize in the database, but once that's completed, we can just grab it from Operation Management, and we can confirm those changes by looking at the patron information. So here we go. Every single patron got updated. Their grade now says 2017. Okay. Now, with that unified grade field in place, we're going to go ahead and start with our import process. Importing is really nice because with a patron import, you can, like I said, simultaneously update information as well as add new patrons to the database. Now, to get us started with our patron import file, I want to address how that file needs to be set up. So 1 second while I shift this over just a touch. All right, so when it comes to updating your patron information, everybody, this file is usually retrieved from your student information system or SIS, something like PowerSchool. Typically, when you're going to get this, it will come out in an Excel spreadsheet. Unless your technicians have modified this into a tab delimited file for you, or whomever is actually giving you the information, they may have already done this step for you. But if they did provide you a spreadsheet, guys, converting this into the proper file is super easy. All you need to do is open that up in Excel, go to File, select Save As, pardon me. And then with that Save As feature, you want to make sure that you're setting this up as a tab delimited text file. On Windows machines, it may say text tab delimited, okay? So long as that file is properly formatted like it is down here, so this is already in that text format, we can then proceed with bringing it into Alexandria. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop that save at this time. And for those of you that haven't seen one before, a tab delimited file just looks something like this, where all of the information is separated by tab spaces. With the file in the proper format, we're going to come back into Alexandria here. We're going to come into our import section from our toolbox. And then here in our import section, we're just going to make sure that we're grabbing our patron imports. Now, really quick, everyone, if you're seeing something like this where the screen kind of cuts off and things aren't quite sized properly, this is a scaling feature. So all you need to do is come in and zoom out in your browser just a touch, and you'll be able to see all the rest of those settings and field markers. Okay. All right, so now that we've got our patron imports in place, we're going to go ahead and bring in our file. You can either use the Choose File button. I recommend dragging and dropping, just because it's super easy to grab that file and pop it into the correct location here. Once the file's in place, we're going to begin our field mapping. Over here on the left, we have a list of all of the Alexandria fields as they are in our, excuse me, these are the fields as they appear in our import file, according to our header line. Over on the right-hand side, these are our Alexandria fields. All we need to do is click and drag these fields up and down through the list to make sure they match. Barcode, first name, last name. We want homeroom, there we go. And then grade, wonderful. So now that we've got all of our files lined up, or fields lined up in the proper order, we're going to select Set. And the last things that we're going to do here are archive before importing and skip that first record because we don't need a record that says first name, right? We want to make sure that we're using barcodes in the import file to make sure things match and update. And then we want to make sure that we're allowing the import to modify existing records, okay? With all of those settings in place, this import file, as I mentioned, will add any new individuals as well as simultaneously update existing patrons in your system. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run on this one at this time. Now, especially with imports, if you're using the archive before import, you want to give that database maybe 5 to 10 seconds to finalize its archive before you actually jump in and go to retrieve the file. But once you do that, you'll just click on that wrench icon to open Operation Management, and you can get the details right there from the listing. All right. Now keep in mind that you will see the total number of records processed at the bottom of the report there. However, final confirmation of the update is going to be done by going to your patrons section. So I'm going to go ahead and pop under my tools, switch to patrons, and I'm going to use my quick search here really quick to find any people that I've added today specifically or modified today. There we go. And everybody's been updated. Now, anybody that was not in my import file is going to still have that grade of 2017. Everybody else that was in my import file should have their information updated and changed. So we're going to go ahead and spot check one person specifically. I'm going to do a quick search for one of our favorite training people, Darla Anderson. And there's her record, updated homerooms and information. All right, so now that we've gone ahead and updated all of our patrons with our import here, The last step that comes into this Alexandria method is the removal utility. Now, with that removal utility, it is pretty straightforward, guys. So since we've just confirmed our patrons, we're going to pop back under Tools. We're going to go to Utilities. And from here, we're going to come under Patrons again, and we're going to grab our Remove Patron utility. All we need to do is in the Patrons in Grade option, we're going to go ahead and select by our 2017. This way, you know, we're only looking for those patrons that did not get updated or changed with that import file, and everything should match accordingly. When you're ready to do the removal, you'll simply go ahead and hit Run, and then you would confirm that you're looking to remove the right number of records. That does seem a little bit high here, guys. I apologize, there might be something else that happened. We're going to go ahead and actually cancel that for one quick second, but that's just to show you what version 7 is going to bring you. You want to confirm, does everything look accurate? If it doesn't, we're going to go ahead and say no, stop from running that utility and actually go in and do some evaluation. So let me take a look and see here. Allow, skip first record, archive. You know what? I believe that skip first record did not assign. Pardon me, everyone. I just wanted to look at one quick thing here. I want to try a search for our 2017 users. Now let's see if we've got anything other than that, actually. Let's just try grade 10. I promise the process is sound, everyone. I think it was just my settings on that one. This skip first record, it should be matching on our first one. However, I think it was actually skipping that actual header line and not recognizing the field. So let's try this one more time. Confirm field mapping. Go first name, last name, homeroom, grade, set, and run. Operation management, here we go. And where's my import? Import all operations. Interesting. I'm not seeing that my import ran at all today. Let's try this one more time, guys. I'm going to start from the beginning. Sorry. Tools, import. Bring in our file and field map. Homeroom, grade, set, run. Okay. All right, there we go. Apparently our import didn't run earlier. That's what my problem was. Sorry about that, guys. So let's let this finalize, and we'll do a quick little recap there. I guess that there was a field not matching. But again, guys, so that three-step process, it is really simple and straightforward. Again, I do apologize that my first import didn't run, but we'll go ahead and confirm that here in just 1 second once it finalizes. Now, depending on the size of your database, pardon me, or excuse me, depending on the size of your patron database, the length of your import may kind of fluctuate a little bit. This one did go fairly quickly, but there we go. That's what we wanted to see. Everybody got updated. And now we're going to go ahead and jump back to patrons. And let's look at Darla one more time here. Let's clear our search. First name, Darla. Better idea. I'll just do a blank search here so the page will refresh. There we go. Now we're seeing those updates. Grades of 1, grades of 7. Much better. All right, guys. So now let's try out our utility tools and utilities here. And now we're going to remove those people with that 2017 still. So patrons, remove patrons in grade of 2017. Here we go. This time for sure, right? Oh, it doesn't look like we've got any patrons with a grade of 2017 left over. Let's confirm that in our patrons section. So we're going to do a search, grade of 2017. There we go. Everybody was updated. That means we didn't lose one single student over the course of our school year, and we've added in all of our new users. So we're going to find those by searching for our first graders, grade 1, because that's going to be our lowest grade level here. Wonderful. New homeroom teacher and everything. So as I mentioned, everyone, that 3-step process is a wonderful way to really quickly unify a field, add and update any new and existing patron information, and then remove any patrons that are no longer in your system. Obviously, there are certain things that you're going to want to look for. Your staff members, you may want to look to leave them out of your import files, or if you're going to address them separately, maybe put them on a specific policy. There are a lot of ways that you can control different groupings as well. But those 3 steps, really quick, really easy. Your patron database is up and ready to go for the school year. Everybody that needs to happen, or with everything that needs to be ready to happen in your system. At this point, you can start cataloging your items and getting things ready to go. Now, before we move on and start talking about the other methods for updating patron information using utilities, advanced grades features, calendars, and policies, I do want to do a really quick poll. Hopefully, this is a little bit new to you guys, so we'd like to see, what did you guys think of our Alexandria method? Josh, would you mind opening that poll for us here really quick?
You got it. There we go.
Thank you very much, sir. So we'd love to know, guys, what do you think of this 3-step method? Is it super simple? Is it something that you might be able to do on your own? Let us know what you think. We love knowing whether or not these processes work for you guys, and whether or not we can improve on them and help make them even easier for you.
Okay, so it sounds like the general portion of folks have not used that process before, but that a lot of folks were able to get the information they needed to learn about it and try it out. 1 or 2 folks did not. We will probably send out with the recording of this, maybe a little bit more details and links about this process. So make sure if you didn't get enough information today about that you can rewatch the recording, of course. You can take a look at the info we send out, but you can always call and speak to our customer support team. They are very familiar with this process as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that everybody really enjoys that. They think that method's going to work. And as Josh mentioned, guys, yeah, we do train all of our support staff on this method for managing and maintaining your patron database at the beginning of the school year. So if you need any help with any one of these steps, definitely let us know. That's why you guys have that 24 tech support coverage. Make sure that our technicians are getting you the help that you need to get this process moving swiftly. So Josh, you did say that we had a couple of questions about this section, so let's go ahead and field those at this time really fast.
Perfect, thank you. One of our individuals, Jennifer Mock, wanted to know if you can do this process without changing the barcode numbers for existing patrons.
Wonderful question, Jennifer. Now let me actually clarify something here really quick. Patron barcodes can only be changed manually, so by coming in here and changing the barcode field, or with a very specific barcode script. In essence, when you're doing this method, the key piece of information that you are matching on to update is the barcode number specifically, okay? So this barcode number is the number that's saying, if you see this number, change all other content around it, meaning grades, homerooms, even first and last name. So the one thing that I will warn about when using this method, guys, is that you're probably not going to want to repurpose your barcode numbers or student ID numbers for new students. So for instance, as you can see here, Frank Hansen is obviously a man's name, but we've got a picture of a cute little girl here. This is because this barcode number 2001 was initially issued to somebody else, and we've reappropriated their record to give them this name, Frank Hansen, okay? So keep in mind, barcode is the key identifier for matching and updating, and thus it should not be changed at all when it comes to this 3-step method. So great question, great for us to clarify on that one. Barcode number is kind of the matching feature. So thank you for the question, Jennifer. That was a good one.
Perfect. And I think that's pretty much everything we've got right now that's pertinent to that. We'll have some more at the end, though.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I am going to try to address these questions, guys, like I said, during the sections that they're most applicable to. Otherwise, we will be saving the last 10 minutes or so of our training just for that general Q&A to address anything that's come up. So thank you for the information, Jennifer. And if you guys do need anything else, definitely get those questions in so that Josh can forward them over to me. All right, so with that in mind, guys, so that's the Alexandria preferred method. That's the way that we kind of teach everybody here to do their patron updates and management at the beginning of the school year. The next thing that we're going to be covering is kind of that step-by-step method. So we're going to be talking about going field by field, okay? So field by field is essentially meaning that we're going to advance grades, we're going to address homerooms, we're going to, you know, add our new patrons separately, and we're also going to address things like card expiration dates and stuff like that. This three-step method that we just touched on just basically does all of those things in one quick step. Otherwise, you're going to be using multiple utilities and things to get that done. So to dive back into the program here, guys, when I'm talking about field by field updating, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically just telling the system to go in and change certain pieces of information. I need to move all of my first graders to second grade. I need to move everybody from the homeroom Hutch to the homeroom Johnson. These are field by field moves that we can do in Alexandria, and it's just going to give you, you know, much more spot-based control over what information resides where. The first place to get us started with things like field by field changes is going to be in the preferences, because this is where you're going to want to confirm your grade table. So if we go into our toolbox and we pop under our preferences section here, in this section, we're going to go under our patrons area, and we're going to confirm that our grade table is established properly. This is basically just saying our lowest level through our highest level. When our highest level has finished their attendance for that year, they're going to be moved into our last grade, which is graduated. Now, inside of this grade table section, two things that I want to point out here really quick are the Advanced All Grades button here in the bottom right corner of the page, as well as the Advanced Grades after date range, okay? Basically what this is it's a utility to perform this action. So if I come in here and say advance all my grades, anybody with a grade level of 2 will be moved into a grade level of 3. So here's what we're going to do really fast. We're going to come in here and we're going to grab a quick patron here. Let's look for a second grader. Oops. Need to change my grade. Here we go, 2 and 2. Maybe I don't have any second graders. Let's try third graders. That's funny. I just imported a bunch of those guys. Let's try 8. Odd. Here. Okay, one second here, guys. Let me try something a little bit different here. Search. First graders. 8th graders. Okay. Well, Vincent Shire. Here we go. He's an 8th grader that we have. We're going to remember the name Vincent is what we're going to do. But for now, what we're going to start off with is we're going to run that advanced grade utility from preferences. So by coming in here to my grade table and hitting my advanced all grades option, I'm going to go ahead and select my site specifically, and we're going to tell the system to advance. Now, just like with the import, guys, we do need to give the database a quick second to go ahead and let that process. That advanced grades utility, though, once it's completed, we would be able to view that from operations management here. I can get the details by clicking on that blue circle with the white eye, and we can see how that grade level advancement went. They were advanced 8, 9, 10, and so on. Of course, final confirmation of that grade change is going to be done by coming in here. I'm actually going to go ahead and do a new blank search to update, and then we're going to grab Vincent again here really quick. First name, Vincent. And as you can see, he's been moved from grade 8 to grade 9. So that field by field grade advancement, that's going to be the first one, advancing all grades. Automating this process, guys, is super easy by just putting in the date on which you would like that to advance. So if I come in here and say, I want this to advance on May 30th, June, here we go, May 30th, there we go. I can set that up as my advanced grade date and save it so the system will automatically roll those grades up on that date. So advancing grades, super simple. The biggest step here, guys, make sure you've got your grade table established. Otherwise, those grades cannot advance because the system won't know how those grades are supposed to move through levels, okay? The next fields that we're going to address are things like homerooms, second location information. All of these things you're going to address via utilities. You can do utilities in a variety of ways, but it's going to be the easiest way to assign bulk information. Get a couple of tabs closed here really fast. There we go. Get info even. So we're going to start off. We're going to talk about things like homeroom and second location initially. So we're going to pop under tools. We're going to go into utilities here. And within the utilities section, we're going to talk about management. So I'm going to come under my patrons area. And as you can see, all of our fields are indicated with these change fields. So if I want to change a patron homeroom, I'm going to come in here and select that as my field. Usually when it's coming to homeroom information, guys, you're going to want to work with something like a barcode list or a range of barcodes, something along those lines, so that you can identify, on a one-to-one, this student belongs with this homeroom teacher. You can use other things if you're a more simplified school where literally all of your second graders belong to one teacher. Go ahead and set that as your select by. So patrons in a grade of 2 are going to get the homeroom teacher of Jones. Oops. O-N-E-S, there we go. And we can go ahead and run that utility to modify that information for patrons, okay? Great, there we go. And modify. With version 7, guys, when you get that confirmation window that says this many patron records are going to be updated, you no longer have that archive step like you had in previous versions if you've updated from like version 5 or version 6 into version 7. So this is your reminder window to, if this doesn't look accurate, hit no, go back, modify your selections, make sure that you're only working with patrons that you're looking for, okay? So, but using these utilities, you can do a lot of bulk changes. The other option for modifying by fields, guys, is doing it individually here in the patron record. Now, when you're modifying these, the most common thing that's going to happen for adding new people is a one-off addition. So I'm going to come in here and click my plus button, and I'm going to go ahead and add that new student with their new teacher right into the system. The other option, guys, is you can always use an import file to add only your new students. If you're using the advanced grade tools and the utilities to reassign information, I definitely recommend only importing that newer student database, just because if you're doing those advanced grade utilities and everything else and then importing your full student body, you're effectively doing the work twice. And why would you ever want to double up on something when updating patron information is a big enough task that we should only need to do it once, right? So be mindful, when you're doing that import file, if you're using the advanced grades and field by field changes, only import that new student database. Otherwise, you're going to be adding them manually in this fashion. Okay. The last thing we're going to talk about when it comes to field by field updating with patrons is their expiration dates. Now, most libraries by default do not use the card expiration dates. If you are one of those libraries that does, though, you'll want to be sure to come in and update all of those expiration dates using the utilities. So if your students expire at the beginning of each school year and need to be updated for expiration dates, you can come into the tools section, you can go under utilities, and again, under the patrons section, we're going to use the renew patron cards feature to go ahead and renew them for another 365 days, okay? Again, you can do this for all patrons. You can do it for a grade level or a homeroom. You're just going to want to make sure that you're getting everybody that was expired reactive in the system. Card expirations can always be addressed at the time of circulation. So if you don't run this renew patron cards utility, if you've got somebody expired in the database, when they come in to check out items, you will be prompted at the time of circulation to renew them as well. So you can address renewals at any time, leave people inactive until they try to come check things in, or you can just do a massive renewal on all your patrons via utilities. Those are all the key things that you'll want to address when going through field by field updating in your Alexandria system. Keep in mind, you can do this via utility for bulk information, or you can do it individually in the patron section, whichever you're more comfortable with. The next part that we're going to talk about when it comes to back to school time is let's talk about our preferences and settings. We're going to talk calendars, policy management and updates. We're going to make sure that everything's connecting and lining up in the system, because it never hurts that as you come back to school, even though things should have been the same as the previous school year, you might have a few things that want to update. Hey, maybe you're cataloging your textbooks through Alexandria and you need to get a new end of the year hard due date on those textbook policies. These are all things to consider at this point in time, so we're going to go ahead and dive into those with you. Now, the first thing that we want to talk about when we're talking about just database checkup is it's all found in preferences, guys. Everything that we need to look at, we're going to go tools, and we're going to go into preferences. In here, the biggest one that we want to confirm, guys, is our policies. Let's make sure that there haven't been any changes made. This, as we mentioned during all of our trainings, really policies and preferences and settings should really be the set it and forget it portion of Alexandria. But if you're inheriting a library, if you're brand new to Alexandria, if you just don't remember exactly what policies you're working with, the beginning of the school year is a great time to come in and review those. It never hurts to come in, look through the various ranges, make sure to verify your exceptions if you're not seeing them. Hey, my staff members are supposed to get items checked out for a month at a time. I'm going to get that policy change back in place to make sure that everything's connected, okay? Here in policies, you're also going to specify which calendar these people operate on. And we're going to talk calendars more here in just a second, guys, but keep in mind if you are using multiple calendars and multiple policies, this means that you can set up things like multiple end of the year due dates for patrons. Maybe your seniors have to return items a week before your juniors and sophomores. Go ahead and set this up with policies and calendars so that everything can just be automated in the system, okay? So we're going to come back to this in a second, but again, it never hurts to come in, verify your policies, make sure that you know when you're seeing everything as it should be, especially your exceptions. If you're working with exceptions, you'll always want to double check those as well, okay? Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about, guys, is calendars, okay? Calendars and policies when it comes to managing information. Oh, quick backtrack here really quick, guys. As we mentioned, textbooks in Alexandria, if you are using textbooks, again, make sure that you're getting in those no hard due dates. If you have a hard due date set up that's sometime in the past, if my hard due date was May 5th of 2014, obviously that can't be applied because we're in 2018. Now, I believe we're in 2018, halfway through the year, right? You know, keep in mind, you will want to double check any of those hard due dates that you are using to make sure they are for the current school year. Otherwise, your transaction periods and loan types should all be maintained, okay? With your calendars, guys, keep in mind the big thing with calendars, period due dates. So as a quick refresher for everybody in Alexandria, your hard due date, if you're using that by policy, overwrites transaction periods. Okay, so if you want to set up a generic end of the year due date for all materials, but you still want your regular 2-week transaction period throughout the rest of the school year, this is where your period due date comes into play. Okay, your period due date is created by simply going to the month when you're going to need those materials returned. So I'm going to go ahead and arrow into May of 2019. And you know what? I want those materials due back on the 24th, week before the last week of school. So I click on that date twice to make the period due date. Okay, period due dates, what they mean, everyone, is regardless of preference, policy, or setting, all material must be returned to the collection on this day. General circulation will pick up again the day after that period due date. Okay, in the case that you're using multiple calendars, this is how you can set up multiple period due dates for different groupings. So keep that in mind that as if you do have multiple calendars, you might want to look through all of those things as well as your policies. All right. With those settings in place, your preferences in place, calendar set up, policies confirmed, and all of your new patrons into your system, we're ready to start circulating. The new school year is all set and ready to begin. We can go ahead and start checking out those books. Maybe once Life Touch or whomever might be coming through and doing your patron pictures is done, you'll want to import and update those afterwards as well. Patron importing of pictures is super easy. In our import section, you'll just see that we do have an images import area, and you need to specify patrons. We do have some text here that indicates how those files should be created for patron image imports. I recommend if you have any questions on those at all, definitely give our support staff a call. They're more than happy to go through and make sure those files will work with you and even confirm some of the settings in those files as well, okay? So that's your patron management side in a nutshell, your preferences, your patron imports and updates, everything kind of wrapped up. The last thing that we're going to touch on, guys, before we just kind of do a quick little recap and dive into Q&A, is we want to really quickly touch on inventory weeding and primarily discarded items and reporting, okay? Now, for those of you that do inventory at the end of the school year, that's typically when we address inventory, so we're not going to get too much into that at this time. What I will recommend is if you go to our support center and search for our inventory webinar, give that a quick watch if you're doing your inventory at the beginning of the school year. It's going to cover everything that you need to know about inventory. okay? Typically, the most common thing when I refer to inventorying at the beginning of the school year is more getting your database set up and ready for item removals, primarily through weeding and discarding materials and things like that. So what this means in the program, guys, we're going to jump into our circulation module here really fast. And inside of circulation, I'm going to bring up our number 2 patron or our discard patron here. Okay, so as you can see, our discarded section is currently empty. We have no items in here. If we look at our lost category, we do have a couple of lost items. Now, here at Alexandria, we do recommend putting in place some sort of library policy for how you want to manage these items. Every library is a little bit different, and so you're going to want to have some idea of how you're managing lost and discarded. Lost items, maybe you're going to keep those for 2 or 3 years just in case the items get back. Discarded materials, I'm going to remove those at the end or beginning of every school year so that I'm really only cataloging my discards for that year, printing reports and keeping track of them. That's something we recommend here at Alexandria, coming up with a good process for both of those sections. But again, it's up to you for your facility specifically. All right. Any questions, any help modifying those things, definitely let our staff know. But in the end, how you deal with your lost and discarded is really up to a facility by facility choice. Okay. As I said, though, I do recommend running with a blanked out discarded copy section at the beginning of the school year. This way, as I am discarding and weeding my materials throughout the year, it's just going to be building me out a nice little list so that come the end of the school year, I can run a report and have a paper copy and then purge those items from my database in full. Okay. Now, when it comes to getting that zeroed out section, this is going to be done by going Tools and Utilities. And here in the Utilities section, under the Copies area, we have a utility clearly labeled Remove Discarded Copies. Okay, this is what you're going to use to blank out that section. Whether you do it at the beginning or end of the school year, again, entirely up to you. But in the end, this is going to zero out and fully remove those items. Once you've got those items removed, actually addressing the weeding of the materials is as simple as it sounds. We can come in here, and I recommend starting discard mode by either selecting it from your mode pull-down menu here at the top left of the page. We'll set that up for weeding. Or your other option, everyone, is you can always type in DM to start discard mode. And again, we're going to set this up for weeding as well. Once you're in your discard mode, go ahead and start checking out your items. Oops. I forgot my item barcode numbers here. There we go. Let's just grab a base one, 20017. Here we go. So I'm going to come in here. We'll just use our equal sign. There we go. So 20019. Oops. That item was apparently checked out to a person, so we're just going to go ahead and charge the $20 replacement fee, and then we'll discard the next one. There we go. So as you're discarding those items throughout the year, you will just be building a list under that discarded section. And then come the end of the school year or beginning of next school year, you can simply print out this list, come back in, grab your utility, remove all those items, get back to zero, and start building the list for the next year. Because your discarded items are materials that you are specifically saying, I am, as the librarian, am intentionally removing these things, this is where I recommend that process of doing that full removal at the end or beginning of every school year. Otherwise, you know, if you would like to hang on to those items just in case they do get returned, you can go ahead and set up processes to do just that, okay? But in the end, guys, lost and discarded is very specific to your library and your collection. And if you need any help in getting those processes taken care of, definitely let our support staff know. Okay, again, you guys have that 24/7, 365-day-a-year tech support coverage. So give us a call anytime, night or day, and we'll make sure to get you guys help with whatever part of the program you need. All right. So as a whole, that's kind of the general back to school things that you need to address within Alexandria. As a quick recap for us all, we've talked about the Alexandria method of patron management, which is that 3-step process of unifying a field, importing to add and update any new and existing patrons in the system. Third step would be removing any patrons by that still remaining unified field. That way you're getting rid of any users that are not returning. If you're in elementary school and you've got 2nd and 3rd graders that move to a different state and you want to get them out of your system, This three-step process will ensure that you can target those individuals as well as your graduated patrons. We've also talked about patron management on a field-by-field basis, updating grades using the advanced grades tool, using your utilities to match and modify existing patron information to new or to old information, matching grades to policies, homerooms to grade levels, etc. We've talked about the need to go in and check your policies and preferences. Make sure that you've got your hard due dates updated for policies that need them for that year, as well as getting in your period due dates and close dates on your calendars. The last thing that we touched on was inventory and weeding. Again, if you guys need some help performing inventory, I definitely recommend taking a look at our inventory webinar that we held back in May. You'll be able to find that on our support center. And then when it comes to weeding, guys, definitely address your discard mode patrons, that patron number 2. Okay, get in there, determine if you want to hang on to those things for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, no years, and definitely get in place some policies within your library for how you want to address your lost and discarded items specifically. Okay, we've covered a lot of information. We've kind of covered Alexandria end to end at this point. So before we jump in and start with the general Q&A, we do have one more quick poll that I'm going to have Josh send out to you at this time. Just a little bit of a recap. We get all of our Q&A section up and running. We'll be putting you on mute for just a quick second while you take that poll, and then we'll be right back with you guys. All right, everyone. So I think that should be just about enough time. I thank you all for taking our poll here. Josh, let's go ahead and have you close up that poll at this time, and then you should be able to, is there like a share button there, I believe? There we go. Awesome. So here we go. Let's see. Looks like you guys generally found the webinar useful. That's great. I'm glad to hear that you guys found some useful information here. It looks like we got a pretty good split. Most of you do a combination of advancing grades, importing, and updating. Well, hopefully this will help you guys figure out, maybe a preferred method. Maybe you're going to want to start using our 3-step method. Maybe you're going to keep using a combination. The one thing that I'm going to recommend for you guys is that, whatever you're more comfortable with, if you've been using Alexandria for a long time, keep doing what you're doing. There's no need to change the processes that you've been using in the past, but hopefully we'll show you a few tips and tricks and maybe get a few more things out there for you to try. And I'm glad to hear that you guys like our webinars. I'm glad to hear that you guys are excited with version 7 and getting into some of these new features. Version 7 is always coming out with new fun things to do in the program. And here from the training department, we're definitely going to be trying to highlight those as much as we can with our future webinars. So glad to hear that you guys are enjoying the program. I'm really excited that you guys are getting some good information out of these webinars and training resources, and that's just going to tell me that we got to keep putting them on. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in and start addressing Q&A at this time. So Josh, if you don't mind jumping in here, I'm going to ask you to field me some questions.
Sounds perfect. All right. So Diane Greenberger had our first question. She wants to know if we need to unify our homeroom before doing the importing.
Unifying the homeroom. Well, and it was Diane, correct?
Mm-hmm, it was.
Well, Diane, great question. Now, when it comes down to the field unification, that is entirely up to you which field you unify. I recommend grade just because grade is one of the most common fields found in an import file. However, if you are including the homeroom as well, the homeroom could be the field. Essentially, you only need to pick one field to unify. And the reason for that is specifically for the utilities, okay? So when unifying that field, it needs to be one. It should be grade or homeroom. You don't want to use both of them. If you use both, you're essentially just adding one extra step into that unification. So pick one or the other, homerooms or grade, because that's going to be the information that you're using as the removal. That's the big one. So when we look at our patrons and we're using that remove patron utility, that's where we're going to be very specific. So if you unified your homeroom to say last year or something like that, go ahead and use that as your select by. But it's going to be one or the other. It's usually either grade or homeroom or maybe a second location. You're only going to want to unify one of those fields. So, okay. Great question though, Diane.
Perfect. Now, Collie Ryan asked, I'm brand new to Alexandria as well, and I'm not sure where to begin. Is there an in-school training available? Maybe you could talk about some of our resources, maybe show how to access the support center.
Absolutely. So first of all, let me welcome you to Alexandria. It's a fun, exciting program. There's a lot of neat things that you're going to find here, and we definitely want to get you the help that you can have, that, as much help as you can to get through these processes. Now, I'm going to start off referencing two quick things. The first of which is our support center. So at any time, if you need help in the program and you just want to look up information online, use the support center. That's the circle with the question mark in the top right corner of every Alexandria window. When you click on those links, it's going to take you to that specific portion of the program from whatever page you are on. But we've got great search tools and features in here as well to help you find any type of resource that you're looking for. So for instance, I mentioned our inventory webinar. So I can come in here and actually say inventory webinar, and I can jump right in and watch that video at any time right through our support center, guys. Okay, so this is probably one of the best resources that you have to get started. Being a brand new librarian or cataloger into Alexandria, the next resource that I recommend is our back to school webinar, or excuse me, our basic training webinars, pardon me. We host those webinars every other Tuesday and Thursday. They are done in a part 1 and part 2 fashion. The part 1 is essentially building your collection. We're talking about adding patrons, adding items, starting on circulation, kind of all of those things to get you running. The second session is going to be covering the background preferences, settings, reports, utilities, kind of all of those things that you're going to be doing as a librarian, making use of that system. If you need some links for that, definitely let our support or sales staff know, and they can forward you out all the information on how to register for those basic training webinars. And then we've got a lot of things in the works for an online training platform called Alexandria U. That's going to be a video-based training that's looking to be out here in the next month or two. So online resources, register for our training webinars. If you would like to purchase an actual personalized training, we do offer those with an on-site and a webinar style training format. And you're just going to want to get in touch with your account administrator in order to get those different offerings as well. So get in touch with our support or our sales staff. They can get you links for all of the basic trainings and all of those fun video-based trainings that we're using. But if you have no other option, definitely give our support staff a call, and they're more than happy to coach you through the program as well. So there's a wealth of information and resources right at your disposal. You just gotta let us know what you're needing help with. So.
Perfect. Now, Diane had a little bit of a follow-up to her question earlier regarding homerooms. Can you show us under patrons how to see our list of available homerooms that are currently in there attached to patrons and how to maybe remove them?
Yeah, absolutely. So Diane, if you're looking for homerooms, typically one of the best ways to address a homeroom is to come in here and you can simply go to your homeroom section. And you can click on this little search magnifying glass to see a list of all the homerooms that are currently in your system. So if I want to find all of Miss Phillips's kids, I can go ahead and search for those. It doesn't look like we have any. Let's try Paige. Oh, oops. Now, guys, sometimes you don't want to do what your trainers do. Just as a quick recap, that wasn't working because I had a name and I was trying to search for a homeroom and it was looking for both. So use that clear button, perform a new search. Now let's try this for Shaw. Here we go. So here's all the students that we have with that one homeroom of Shaw, okay? If we wanted to change just this group, we could then go through and person by person, make changes to those records as necessary. You also have the ability, guys, to use that as a select by for a utility. So if everybody from Shaw's class is moving into Davis's class, then that's going to be our select by in our utility. So we would go tools, we would go utilities. We're going to use that change patron homeroom. So change patron homeroom utility right here. We're going to be selecting by the name of Shaw. And then under our options tab, we're going to change that to whatever the teacher name now is, which is Jones. Okay, so that's what you're going to be looking for. And I'm hoping that I'm getting your question answered here, Diane, but that's what you're looking for. If you need to find something unified, do a quick search, find that group. You can confirm that that's the right group, and then use that as a select by to modify and change your utility, okay? So, but otherwise, again, that import method should address all of these for you. If you're doing the import, you'll just want to make sure that you got your entire student body in that import file to do it in bulk.
Perfect.
Great question.
Thanks, Jake. Jennifer Mock wants to know if an item is in discarded copies, is it supposed to still show up in Researcher when a patron searches for that title?
Great question, Jennifer. This really comes down to your preferences and settings in Alexandria. So if you go into your toolbox and into preferences, under your researcher preferences here, it's just going to take it a second to load, you're going to find a section that actually says auto hide. Now, how this works, guys, is if you have auto hide enabled and you're working with lost and discarded copies, The only way those items are not going to show up in the researcher is if all copies are currently lost or discarded. Okay, so if you've got 5 copies of an item, 4 of them are lost, but 1 is checked out to a patron, that item will still show up in the researcher because that last item people can place on hold. People can make reservations for that item. So it will show up, okay? If you've got these preferences enabled and that on all copies are currently lost or the only copy is currently lost or discarded, then these should not be showing up in your researcher. So to answer your question, Jennifer, I would maybe give our support staff a call. You know, if these settings are in place and you're still having those items show up in researcher, definitely let us know because we might need to be doing some evaluation and maybe seeing if there's something else going on with the program. But otherwise, with the proper preferences and settings, those items should not be showing up for researcher.
Perfect. We had another question about how you could remove a specific barcode range of items or patrons.
Okay, so removing a barcode range is super easy, guys. When you're in those removal utilities, so if I come Tools and Utilities here again, under either section, now I recommend when you're working with a barcode range, removing copies is what you're going to be looking for. So you'll come under the Copies section. You're going to find that Remove Copies utility in the list. And then right in here, you've got that remove copies in a barcode range right here. All right. So all you need to do is I'm looking for barcodes in the 2100 range through the 2200 range. There we go. One too many zeros there. And then I would hit run. All right. The same thing goes into patrons. You're just going to want to make sure that you're using a patron range. So patrons barcode one. Oh, pardon me. We'll go under patrons. We're going to say remove patrons. And then same thing. We've got a patron in a barcode range. And we can go 1000 through 2000 or whatever that range is. Okay. Now, one thing with removals, guys, bear in mind that when you do remove information, again, there is no reference to whether or not that item or patron existed in the database to begin with. And so this is where, especially with weeding materials and discards and stuff like that, I do recommend using those lost and discarded sections because it's essentially a holding location. I'm going to check all these items out to discard it. I'm going to run a report so I have an actual physical list that I can reference and say, did I have any of these items at one point in time? And then I'm going to do the removal to permanently purge them and get them out of my system. Okay, but keep in mind, you know, those removal utilities can be done through ranges, and it's just going to go ahead and remove everything within that range. Now, with your patron records, if patrons have items checked out or owe money to the collection, by default, they will be skipped over. And this is just so that you can go in and address those things before removing the patron in full. Okay, but either one of those ranges are available via utility.
Perfect. And also, could you show us the steps to import patron pictures?
Absolutely, guys. Now, I do have a patron import file here with pictures. So this class of 2018, 2019, here's my patron images. And you can see those images are labeled by their student ID or barcode number, .jpeg, or whatever file extension type I'm going to have. So this is the format that you need to have those files in before you can import them into Alexandria to add pictures. All right. Once you've got that file, the next step is you're actually going to need to come in here and you're going to need to compress it. You've got to zip that file down. And when it's compressed, you want to make sure that it's smaller than 50 megabytes. Let me see here. Where's my compressed file? Do a couple of moves here. So right there, there's my file. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the info here. So we are under, where'd it go? 1.2 megs. There we go. So we're definitely under that 50 megabyte limit for our patron pictures, and we've got our file compressed. Once you've got that file compressed, that's when we're going to jump into Alexandria, and we're going to go Tools and back into Imports. And in this import section here, you're going to see your images import area. Okay, make sure that you're selecting your patron pictures. Now, with this zip file, you do need to use the Choose File button. We'll grab our zip file and we'll say open it into the program. And then we would simply hit run at this time. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this. Let's see here what happens. I know that we're going to get some different pictures. All right, and we're just going to give that a second to process. Now, again, the biggest thing with that import file for images, guys, you need to make sure that the student ID or student barcode number is how the file is labeled for each image, because that is going to be the key matching information to get those images onto the Alexandria patron record. And I do stress the student ID or barcode number because it is very specific. In the case that you're working at a facility where Alexandria generates your barcode numbers, you'll want to include the student ID in this field to get that picture to match and update, okay? If the student ID is the barcode number, you're already set. Everything's gonna be just gravy, all right? But otherwise, if you're letting Alex generate, you wanna include student IDs, okay? Now let's see here, our file should be completed by now, I would hope. Oh, it's still working on that one, so we'll give it another minute here. But once we see that that's completed, guys, essentially all we would want to do is we would want to come in here and we'll do a new search for Darla Anderson really quick. Oh, that hasn't finalized, but her barcode number should be one of those that's changed, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. Oh, no, her picture is the same. So, no updates on this go around. I should have modified that number. Oh, well.
No worries. I think that explains it pretty well.
But that's it in a nutshell, guys. Patron import picture for pictures, super easy, and I definitely recommend doing that with your Alexandria system just because it's always great to have that visual confirmation when those patrons are coming through and checking out their items. So, all right, Josh, I think we got time for one more question. What do you got for me?
I think we're at the end of what we have. So what I'm going to do is, just so everyone knows, I'm just going to send out a chat link to a survey. If you all could, when you have a moment, take a look at that and fill that out for us if you have time. We'd love to hear more of your thoughts through that. Otherwise, from me, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure working with you all, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you on the phones here in the future. And hopefully you enjoyed the webinar. Thanks, y'all.
Yes, everyone. Thank you very much for your time today. It's been a true pleasure working with you guys to go through and get some back to school materials up and out there for you. If you do have any questions, if you need any kind of a recap, we will be sending out emails following our webinar. They'll probably be going out about tomorrow afternoon. We just have some finalizations that we're going to do before we actually put the recordings on our website there. So don't worry, recaps will be coming out here quickly. If you do have a minute to take our survey, we would greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Jake Vanderlinden. It's been a pleasure working with you guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next Alexandria webinar. So we hope that you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll leave the session open for another second so you guys can get to that webinar link, or excuse me, that survey link going forward. And I look forward to talking to you on the phones. Take care, everyone.